Hello and welcome. I'm Psychic Medium Roberto, and I truly hope you're doing well today. And we have an interesting case we're going to look at today. But before we get started, we are dealing with a true crime event and may be upsetting for some viewers. And this is obviously treated as alleged until proven in a court of law. All right, and in today's case, I'm looking at the suicide or murder of Joseph Daniel CASOLARO, who has just been featured in the recent Netflix docuseries hosted by Christian Hansen and directed by Zachary Treats. What a interesting story. And of course, it turns out it's obviously based on a true story. I won't do any spoiler alerts, but if you are interested in the spy world and spy games, investigative journalism, it's a series you should watch. So the main question brought up by the two filmmakers is, was Joseph murdered or did he actually commit suicide? So obviously he was found and discovered on August the 10th with a slash wounds on his body by his wrists, right? On both sides. And so severely so that the cuts tore his tendons. So, I mean, as gruesome as that is, it also alerts us that definitely not suicide. All right, so I've brought in as many of the players that I could pick out from the series. And on the top left, of course, we have Joseph, date of birth. To the right, we have Robert M. Gates, who was the director of the CIA at the time. We have George H.W. Bush, who was the sitting president at the time. And of course, we know he came from the CIA. If we go to the left, we have R. Ronald Reagan. He was mentioned substantially in the series, and he had obviously just gone out of the office a year or two, if I'm correct. But he wasn't sitting, or he was still, it was 2 years after, but I still feel he would have had some kind of influence. Joseph Siller, sorry if pronounce, and then we have Joseph Suller, excuse the pronunciation, who is alleged to have been the actual hitman based on evidence collected by both, or at least by Chris and his team, to have been the hitman responsible for Joseph's death. And then I've got the CIA's date of birth, or the date that the CIA was founded, Corporation of Murder. All right, so let's have a look here. The August the 10th was the day that Joseph was discovered in his hotel room. Now, if we just look on that day, we have the 8-10-1-20 with an outcome 2. That top line would effectively be, in effect, the, let's say, 1 minute past midnight on August the 10th till sunrise. And that line there alone tells me no murder, no violence, although the 8 can be violence, but it doesn't tell me there was a murder or suicide or anything. And in fact, the 10-1 actually alerts me, which in this case, dealing with government and agencies, etc., you are looking at 10-1 as the, let's call it the agency or the organization. And of course, when the murder took place on August the 9th, and we'll get there, but what I'm getting to is when that murder took place, the night before, the evening before, 10-1 would have been in play in that 8, communication to the organization that the deed had been done, reflected in the 18-9 murder. 18-9 murder. With the outcome of the August the 10th, 11-2, which is breaking the law. Okay, 11-2, breaking the law. So here we have an agency organization who committed a murder, therefore breaking the law. And interestingly enough, because August the 10th, or let's put it this way, because the event happened on August the 9th, August 10th becomes a reflection. And that 11-2 outcome on that day, highlighted in green, pings directly on Joseph Coulier. I'm getting that pronunciation wrong. I'm terribly sorry. Let's just say JC for argument's sake. The alleged hitman. Interestingly, it pings directly on Ronald Reagan. So we must, I don't want to give too much away, but that would be significant in that Ronald Reagan would have been involved or in the know of what the series is effectively about. Let's say that. Let's be fair if you haven't watched it. But for me, the event took place on August the 9th. Now, having watched the series, there's an eyewitness account that actually confirms what I'm saying. 19-10-1 outcome of the day. That series of numbers, 19-10-1, would take effect from sunset till midnight. So I've written there, the murder anytime after sunset and before sunrise the next day. So let's say, for argument's sake, I know in the States the sun goes down a little bit later than, let's say, where I am, for example. But let's say by sunset, nightfall till midnight, unfortunately, Joseph CASOLARO would have been murdered. Not suicide, murdered. 199 being the murder. Now, I believe Joseph CASOLARO imprinted on me the 17-8. So obviously he didn't give me the number, but what he told me was he was drugged. Okay. And the drug was delivered in the form of an aerosol, 17-8 aerosol, like a spray. Because what I find interesting as well is there was an eyewitness. In fact, the next door neighbor of the hotel room Joseph CASOLARO was staying in had witnessed a gentleman with brown hair or dark hair, let's say darkish hair. I forget now, I believe it's dark hair. Well, definitely not Joseph CASOLARO with his blonde hair, right? So dark hair had entered his room at around sunset, nightfall. In the evening is what she had said. And what's interesting in the series, and this is a spoiler alert, so if you want to block your ears for 30 seconds, I'll keep it short. The eyewitness had written a letter to the police stating she had seen a different man enter his room, Joseph CASOLARO's room. And there was zero follow-up about that eyewitness account at all. So very interesting and also very alarming. Now, the premise behind this whole series is that there's a network of scrupulous people, let's say. So I will just say, just for balance and objectivity point of view, the CIA is obviously mandated to protect American citizens from external forces. Okay. However, we can all agree, and we can cite various examples, that there are levels of gray areas. Remember the whole blowout about black sites post 9/11? So the spectrum that CIA would enjoy goes from left to right. Okay? And of course, there are units or teams working in the shadows. So although the mandate is of good intention, of course, there are many blurry lines. And of course, Joseph CASOLARO had come across this, and Christian and his director friend Zachary concurred in their follow-up investigation. So in my mind, and based on the numbers here, 1910-1, Mr. CASOLARO unfortunately was murdered. The 10-1 alludes me to the organization agency hit. Now, if we go to August 8, the day before, this tells me conflict of interest. We have a 8-8 situation. It's like a standoff, if you like. So there's a conflict of interest around information, communication, talking, of course, about what Mr. CASOLARO had stumbled upon. The 16-7 in these kind of spy game worlds is about surveillance. It's also about the hit. Now, that's also interesting. The 16-7, which actually confirms for me the poison scenario. The 16-7 can be also aerosol. So the 6 is the poison. 7 is the means of distribution. 8, then the following day, the 17-8. The 8 is air breathing into the system. And we'll note August 8. So we got the conflict of interest. Now, I believe the situation is already in play on this day already. August 8, the 16-7, the outcome 18-9 is not good. So a decision's been made, a hit has been placed. So let's say Mr. Joseph C., for argument's sake, is given the order. I would probably say August 8 is probably when he got the order, actually, thinking about it now. So he would have traveled August the 9th, or he would have traveled either August 8, August 9. In that gap, he would have been traveling to the hotel, or in the region and then to the hotel. So we see on August the 9th, that 9, August the 8th, August the 9th, starting with a 9 on that day, murder in the air. Murder in the air. The hit was on. And unfortunately, we know what happens next. So when we look at August the 11th to the day after the discovery day, again, it's confirmed. 11-2, law had been broken. 19-10, a hit. Now, here we go. Here's the slam dunk, right? 12-3 pings directly on the CIA. August 11, the outcome of the day, pings directly on the CIA, 12-3. Now, you'll note with the CIA on the right with that column, You have those mass of threes. This is an organization, of course, all about control. Okay? Controlling information, controlling what's coming towards the United States. Of course, that's important. However, when you look at the flip side or the negative aspect, it's about abuse of power. Abuse of power. So here we have a situation where I believe the CIA were involved in or had ordered the hit on Mr. CASOLARO, because as the esteemed investigative journalist that he was, had of course poked the bear. So, yeah, it's just, and I actually just wanted to point out, because this is what I'm thinking about. There's quite a lot of contradictions amongst these people here. So I'm going to show you the balance of positive and negative numbers, right? Have a look at this. Joseph CASOLARO is so he's also got the 16-7. Now, hear me out first. June 16, he has the 16-7, I highlighted in red. We have I should say Robert Gates also has the 16-7, highlighted in red. We note that George Bush also has 16-7. He has the 16-7 actually in the year that he's born, as well as his life path number. And of course, so I'm not going to relate this to August the 8th. Now look at the three characters in terms of the integrity scale, if you like. So Mr. CASOLARO is all about justice, 7, getting the truth out. He's a truth hunter. Human truth, 1, 6, the human, 7 is the truth, the justice around humans, 6. We have the 25-7. Now, interestingly, Robert Gates has the 25-7. Joseph C. also has the 25-7. But finishing off the 16-7, in the presence of Robert Gates and George H.W. Bush, whereas, as I've described Mr. CASOLARO, the 16-7 for the CIA is all about surveillance. Surveillance and hits and injustices to humans, ironically. That's the difference here. And in the case of the 25-7, highlighted in the blue, in the case of Mr. CASOLARO, we have 25-7. Now, he is on a journey to find out the truth. The 5 in the 2-5 is the challenges and obstacles he will face in order to get the truth. Right? Now, if you look at Robert Gates and Joseph C., their 25-7 would represent the injustices obtained or attained through bad ways, 5. So this would be a good example of we all have a choice. And I will also say we're more than just a number. I've always said that. We are always more than just a number. And we have choice. And that's why, like in tarot cards or in numerology, there's a positive and a negative aspect. And people have choices. All right, so obviously we can, in my opinion, Mr. CASOLARO was definitely murdered, but he was murdered on the evening, the late hours of August the 9th. He was subdued by aerosol or some kind of aerosol to either sleep or make him less physical or less able physically, let's put it that way. All right, so let me know what your thoughts are. If you haven't watched the series, it's definitely worth watching. And please leave your comments. I always read your comments. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe and stay alert.